Hi, everyone. Welcome to Champlain College Livestream event. Today, we're going to be talking about internships and study abroad. Thank you all for tuning in. My name is Dominique Carnaccia, and I'm an admissions counselor here at Champlain. This is our third live stream in our spring series. In our first two live streams, we talked about first-generation students and clubs and student life. But don't worry, if you missed the first two, you can find them on our admitted student pages of Champlain's website. They're also archived on our blog, which you can reach at champlainadmissions.champlain.edu. We also have 3 more live streams coming up in our spring series, so feel free to tune in for those as well. Throughout the live stream tonight, if you have any questions at all, you can ask them in the live chat on YouTube, as well as via Facebook Live. We'll do our best to make sure all of those questions get answered on air. So I am going to be introducing our live stream, and then at the end, I'll be hopping into it back in to wrap it up a little bit, but I'll kind of turn it over to our students to answer questions and everything. I also want to welcome everybody who is streaming on Facebook Live. So right now, I'm going to hand it on over to our students. So thanks again for joining us.
Hi, everyone. I think it'll pop up soon. But I'm Jessie. I'm a student at Champlain. I'm a senior communication student. I'm going to be hosting this session. So I'll be asking some questions to some of the other students, and then we'll be going through all of the answers with them. So we're going to start with introductions of them. So if Sarah could start with just talking about who you are, what your year is, your major, and if you went abroad and have any internships.
Okay. Hi, my name is Sarah Gunia. I am a senior professional writing major with a minor in communications. I went abroad to Dublin, Ireland, and I actually had my internship there in Ireland, working for a nonprofit organization called First Fortnight, which is like a fine arts organization that does a yearly festival for mental health awareness. Is that good, Jesse? Great.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nick Brennan. I'm from Medford, New Jersey. I'm a third-year digital forensics major with a minor in data analytics, and I was in New Zealand last semester.
Hello, I'm Emma. Am I popping up? Okay, hi, I'm Emma. I am a senior marketing major with a minor in communication, and I studied abroad in Prague in the Czech Republic last year, and I've also had about 7 internships that range from for-profit companies, agencies, paid and unpaid internships. So I've had my experience in a few.
Hi, everybody. My name is Monserrat Solano. My family is originally from Querétaro, Mexico, but right now we live right outside of Philadelphia. I am a third-year communication student with a minor in marketing, and I studied abroad in Zanzibar, Shanghai, and Dublin. I did actually have the opportunity to do my internship abroad in addition to doing other internships in the Burlington area, and I'm really excited to meet all of you tonight.
Awesome. So we are going to jump right into our abroad questions. We're going to start with Sarah, and I just want to know why you chose Dublin.
So when I first was looking into Champlain to go to college, one of my big requirements to get into any college was that it was a study abroad school and that they had places in either England or Ireland. And Champlain just fit right in for me. Besides from the professional writing program and the view, was that it had a study abroad in Ireland. And I was really excited about that. And I didn't think I was going to be in Dublin. I actually thought I was going to be somewhere else in the area, but Dublin ended up being really cool. And so I decided to go there.
Awesome. And so, yeah, we're just going to go right through the list. So we'll go with Nick next, and then after he's done talking, Emma, and then Montse.
Sweet. So I went to New Zealand. It was kind of a last-minute decision for me. I thought I wanted to go to Dublin, but then I was like, you know what? It felt like a one-time opportunity that I really didn't see myself going to New Zealand or Oceania anytime really in my life, but like I knew I'd go to Europe. So New Zealand just felt kind of like a neat way to visit a part of the world that I really didn't expect myself to go to. So it was really nice to have that opportunity.
I chose to go to Prague, and I used a third-party provider, and I started planning around my second year. And for me, the decision to go to Prague was I wanted to go to somewhere that I wouldn't really go elsewhere any other time. I wanted to really get outside of my comfort zone and meet a whole set of new people. So I went without any friends from Champlain, and it was a really, really cool experience.
Much like Sarah, I actually was considering Champlain mainly because of the opportunities that it had abroad. But the reason that I chose the specific locations that I did was because I really wanted to get a lot of international experience, both within my field and just in my education in general. And choosing Tanzania, Dublin, and Shanghai kind of fit in for me, and being able to go somewhere that I'm comfortable with, somewhere I don't think I would ever get the chance to go back to, and somewhere that I could potentially see myself moving back to. So for me, it really just worked that those locations were all available through the programs here.
Awesome. So every trip, obviously, and every experience has highlights and difficulties. So if we could go through the same order and just talk about some of those highs and lows for you guys when you were studying abroad. We'll start with Sarah.
So I think right away, my biggest highlight of being abroad was probably just like going to all these different places in Ireland, traveling with the group, going to Northern Ireland, going to the coast, going to all these different landmarks and just seeing everything. Also, I ended up getting along really well with my group. Fall groups that go to Dublin tend to be smaller than the spring groups that go, just because it's like kind of an off season for people wanting to go abroad. But it ended up meaning that we all got along really well and ended up becoming like a niche group, which really helped me a lot because I didn't have any I had acquaintances, people I knew, acquaintances. But I didn't have like my friends there. They were all either in Montreal or somewhere else, or were going in spring. But I ended up meeting a lot of people in my classes, and I ended up getting along with everyone, and we just all became really close. I probably like the lowest part was probably some of the weird experiences we had there, because again, Ireland's like a different country with like different rules. And one of the big ones was when I was arriving in Ireland. I was literally the last one because my plane got really delayed. And so I was like rushing, and then I made it, but we ended up with this weird taxi driver that just like was zooming all around. So my first views of Ireland were just like zoom, just like really fast. It was really scary. And just, just some weird stuff you see on the streets. Kids are really, really rowdy there. Like they're like little punks. They are not afraid of calling you curse words that they should not know. But other than that, not really any big lows for me. Just like maybe a little homesickness, but not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Because my mom ended up coming like in October for the fall break. We just went around Europe for a while. So I ended up having more highs and lows during my experience.
Sweet. So my highs probably were, just being in such a beautiful country. It's really hard to put into words how beautiful New Zealand truly is. It's definitely one of the main reasons I tell people to visit the country. Gosh, what else? The people there, everyone I met was really amazing. Because I did go through an exchange, there wasn't a big group of Champlain students who went with me. So that meant I got to make friends who were from all over, not just the United States, but the world. So I made friends who were from Slovenia, the Czech Republic, all over. And that was a really amazing experience to get those connections worldwide. And then on top of that, just living inside a city. I'd never lived in a city before, so getting to live in Auckland was a really great experience that helped me kind of decide that I am comfortable in that setting, and it kind of helped me decide that that's where I want to be after I graduate, inside a city. So that was nice. And then some lows. always check to see if you need a visa for a certain country. Me and my friends planned a trip to go to Australia, but when we got to the airport, we found out we needed a visa, which cost like an extra $100 that we didn't know about. But luckily, like the visa went through like that day, so we were able to get on our flight. No big deal. And then I just think the culture shock could be a little hard, just like with Ireland, the other students were a little more rowdy than I was used to. As far as Champlain students go, we don't get too rowdy, I think, but the New Zealanders definitely did get a lot more rowdy than I expected. But all in all, it was a really phenomenal experience.
So for me, I'll start with my lows because I think they turned into my highlights. Going to the Czech Republic, I spoke 0 words or phrases of Czech going in, and that was a really, really harsh transition. I eventually picked up some things, and I still remember a few words and phrases, and I could get through grocery stores or restaurants with ease by the end of the semester, but it was a really, really big transition. Culture-wise, the Czechs have a harsh shell, and it was hard to walk down the street and not have anyone smile at you like you see on campus. But I was also able to make friends. That was one of the highlights, is because I did a third-party program, I went with no one else from Champlain. So I had an opportunity to start blank and just make a whole set of friends that I'd keep for the semester. And my roommates and I that I lived with in the apartment while I was abroad, we still stay in contact, and it's really great to have made those lasting friendships.
For me, I think just watching other individuals in the groups that I got to go with, it really depends on the experiences that the individual has had that will impact what your highs and lows have been. For me personally, I've been fortunate enough to be able to live abroad before, so I didn't really experience culture shock the way that other Champlain students might have. And when I was traveling with other international students or third culture kids, I also realized that they weren't experiencing as much culture shock. So for me, one of my highlights was the fact that I felt like I really fit in everywhere that I went, regardless of whether or not I went with a bunch of Champlain students or by myself, because all 3 of my programs had a very different variance on how many Champlain students I was with. I felt like I really fit in regardless. In addition to that, I got the experience to travel to some really cool places that I don't think I would have ever been able to go to before. Much like Nick said, he thought this was his only chance to go to New Zealand. Going to Shanghai kind of felt like my only chance to go to Asia. And while I was there, I also got a chance to piggyback on a trip to Indonesia and a trip to Malaysia, which I don't think I would have ever been able to see had I not done that. But when it comes to Shanghai specifically, one of the biggest highlights for me was just the opportunity to experience the intercultural business world, because that's not something that you would really see just maintaining your internship specifically to Dublin. I'm sure the other individuals on the panel can definitely echo that. But I think with that, I didn't really have any negatives to my experience because I try to look at the positive side of things the most as possible. So I didn't really think of anything bad when I was there.
Awesome. So this question specifically is going to be for people who went to places other than the Champlain specific campuses. So for Nick and Emma, and then Monse, who is in Shanghai as well, what was the application process like for these third-party and exchange and partnership programs that stood out to you that was a little bit different? We'll start with Nick.
Yeah, so what stood out to me most is through the exchange we did, after we apply to Champlain to go abroad, once we get into the Champlain abroad, then we have to also apply to the school we want to go to. So I had to do a second application, pretty much another college application to the Auckland University of Technology. So that definitely was an extra step that some of the people who went to Dublin didn't have to do, but it definitely was worth it. I think for Dublin, you also had to do this, but you had to fill out a financial form and some other things that were kind of just a surprise to me. But all in all, there was a really great communication channel where I actually got to talk to my advisor at the Auckland University of Technology. So I never was super lost or confused because I had him to kind of say oh, this is the next step and this is the next step.
And Emma, was the process for you at all different?
It was pretty similar. Instead of applying to the school directly, I applied to the program. So there are third-party programs available. Like I applied to CEA, which is Cultural Experiences Abroad, but there's also API and tons of other acronyms that you can apply to. And then I also had to do a Czech visa, which was a long, extensive application, about 20, 30 pages long, but all in all, it was mostly applying to Champlain to study abroad and then applying to my program specifically.
And so Monse, I know it's a little bit different with the Shanghai program. I think it goes through the Freeman grant. So could you talk a little bit more about your experience with that?
Yeah, so I didn't have to apply to study abroad for that. There's a completely different foundation called the Freeman Grant Foundation that offers the opportunity for individuals to study abroad in different countries in Asia, basically free of charge. It's an almost all expenses paid trip, aside from the payment of your visa. So what happened for me is I had to apply to the program specifically. There's a certain eligibility that you have to meet. You either have to be a business student who has completed X amount of credits, or you need to have completed a certain amount of credits within the business school themselves. Seeing as though I'm a business minor, that's why I was eligible. And there's a process. You need to make sure that your GPA requirement meets. You have to submit an essay, and then you're chosen to be a representative from Champlain at the program. After that, you then have to go through your visa application program, and Champlain connects with a third-party group, sort of like what Emma's was, but in our case, it was called CAPA. And that third-party group sort of facilitates the process for you, and they send you all of the information of what you should expect in your abroad experience, what your location is going to be like there, what your accommodation is going to be, and they work with you to apply for your visa, because it's really important that you get it in before a certain time, because Chinese visas can be finicky. I know mine actually got stuck at the consulate, so I had to wait an extra 3 weeks for mine to come in, which was a little scary because I definitely procrastinated submitting mine. So there was a split second I thought I wasn't going to get a chance to go, but it varies depending on different things in like your financial situation or things like that. My mom at one point came to visit me, and she had to go to the consulate in person instead of just submitting it online like I was able to. So it's a varied process, but Champlain and CAPA both facilitate that for you.
And then one last thing to wrap up the abroad area of things a little bit is, what is one thing that you all wish you knew before going abroad? And we'll start with Sarah with this.
One thing I wish I had known before going abroad is just how much money you need to go for going abroad, because they give you like a prerequisite of like you need at least $2,000 when you go abroad. First, to cover the immigration fee, I believe that's what it's called, which is about $300 or 300 euro, and then just enough to get by. You can get by on 2,000 euro or dollars there, like not to like have fun or anything, but to live. But usually the actual amount that you might need, it's like anything between like $4,000 to $6,000, which it's kind of hard to do, especially when you're a student and if you're paying your own loans. But I ended up spending the last year before I went abroad busting my butt to save up money, and it ended up working out for me in the long run. I just wished I had known that a little bit before I had gone abroad, like how much money I really needed.
Sweet. What I wish I knew was I wish that someone had told me to put a little more time into exploring the country. I focused a lot on school for a while, but and school is of course important, but you are in this country for such a limited amount of time that you should really push yourself to see as much of it as possible. And although you may like get a B on a paper instead of an A because you didn't spend that extra time on it, but like seeing that one site is going to make such a story rather than just like, oh yeah, I got an A on a paper. I think that's what I wish I knew.
For me, I wish that I knew more about the different third-party providers, since I was very dead set on going to a third-party program. I didn't know a whole lot about what the Cultural Experiences Abroad provider was hosting for me. And when you're alone in a country, we do have Champlain's Office of International Education to lean back on for support, but you also do have to advocate for yourself a little bit. And the program that I chose to go through didn't offer a really extensive orientation program or a lot of trips to take you to see the country that you're living in. And some of my friends who also did third-party options had different providers and got a lot more out of that. And I wish that I kind of did a little more research into the provider that I was choosing so I could get more out of my time abroad.
Yeah, I honestly can't really say that I felt like I needed to know something before going abroad that I didn't end up needing to know afterwards, or wishing that I needed to know something, because I felt pretty prepared. I did a lot of research on the cultural differences, what's expected of me because of my identity, and how that would be perceived in the locations that I was going to, be they just the study abroad campus or the locations that I was traveling to. So all in all, I wouldn't necessarily say that I wish I knew it, but I can definitely emphasize doing your research as much as possible.
So we are now going to move on to the internship section of things. So I want to start with Sarah again, and I just want to know how many internships have you had, and then where were they?
So I only had just the one, but my internship was while I was studying abroad. So it was in Dublin, and it was located in downtown Dublin, maybe 6 minutes away from where we were staying. It was really convenient.
So I'll pop in next. I've had 7, I think, if I total them up. It's been a lot, but I've definitely gone above and beyond what's expected. And I also double dip, so I'll do 2 at once. I'm currently finishing up 2 internships for this semester. I'm at Stride, the Wright Foundation for Female Athletes, which is a nonprofit organization in the Burlington, Vermont, Middlebury area that helps girls in middle school get connected with athletic mentors in skiing and basketball at the college level. And then I'm also at Fuse, which is a marketing agency in Winooski, Vermont, which is the town right over, and I do brand strategy for them. So I'm working on national brands, national consumer brands like Tostitos or Smart Food or Pepsi, and I'm working with them to create some really exciting event activations in the coming years, like the 2021 Super Bowl. So that's really awesome.
I have had also, like Emma, around 7 internships. They have ranged from being production companies to marketing agencies to running the internal marketing operations at a company. And I've had internships in Dublin, Shanghai, Burlington, and Philadelphia.
Awesome. So I know a big question for a lot of people is, how do you get these internships? So I want to go through the same order, and if Sarah and Monse could talk specifically about how you get internships where you were abroad, and then if Emma could just talk about some of the campus resources that helped you around Burlington. We'll start with Sarah.
Okay, so for my internship specifically in Dublin, it was actually a class. Specifically, it is a 6-credit class that you can take. You have to apply separately from all the other classes that you take for Dublin. I think they were offering a 3-credit internship, but I'm not sure if that's still done now. I'm not sure. But for that, I had to do it separately. I had a separate interview with the actual Champlain campus in Dublin. And then once they had found an internship that fit me the best, they go around, find internships that best fit your major and your interests. After that, they actually connected me with the actual organization I interned for, and I had an interview with them, and then I got accepted by both.
So on campus, we have a ton of resources that are available to all students. We have something called the Career Collaborative, where we have career coaches for every division at Champlain, and my career coach has been an asset to the way that I find internships. We have a website called Handshake, and job postings and internship postings get posted there all the time, so I'm constantly checking it, which is why I have so many internship experiences, because I'm on there always. But I've looked there and found positions that interest me, and then connect with my career coach to work on my resume and cover letter for that position specifically before applying.
For Shanghai, the entire point of the Freeman Foundation Grant Program is to give students an opportunity to intern abroad. So you're applying to the program already knowing that you're going to be receiving an internship on the other end of that. And because it is through Champlain and through a third-party program, they facilitate that process for you. So essentially, a series of companies reach out to this third-party program named CAPA or vice versa, and they give them the information of the different positions that they're going to have available for their company. And we as students show our resumes and cover letters to CAPA, who then sends them off to the companies, and the companies essentially pick and choose which interns they want. So through that, once you've been picked, you go through an interview stage, which usually happens over the phone since they're in Shanghai, and you download the Chinese app WeChat and you interview with them. And should the company decide to keep you as an intern, then they'll offer you the position on the spot. It's an unpaid internship because it is a paid trip to Shanghai, essentially. Which is fine. And Champlain also stipends you for food and transportation when you're there. So once the company chooses you, you can either choose to accept that offer, or you can say, no, thank you, this isn't really the company missions that I'm looking for, not really the position I'm looking to support. And so you can continue searching. In my case, oh, sorry, my lights turned off. In my case, I accepted the company offer because I was really interested in getting a chance to work with international marketing agencies. And I felt like that was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
So I just want to jump in again and remind everybody who's watching, you can ask questions via the Facebook Live or the YouTube live stream, wherever you're watching. If you just type in the comment section, we'll see that and we can answer any questions you have. But moving on to the next question, I want to talk about everybody's favorite internship they've had and why. I know, Sarah, you've only had one abroad. So if you could talk about something you really, really loved about that experience.
Yeah, I just had the one. Oops. My favorite part of the my internship was actually getting to go to these professional buildings, because I had to run errands for the organization. I actually had to go to different places to like deliver mail and such. I ended up delivering some mail to like a package or something to one of the museums down there. It was really neat because I ended up actually exploring the museum afterwards, and it was really neat.
So this is a hard question because I've had a few that I really, really love, but one that I haven't mentioned yet is I worked for a local algae farm over this past summer, and I really enjoyed that because they gave me a lot of creative leeway. So I was a marketing and communication intern for them, and they pretty much handed over the Instagram handle and told me their goals and said, create content, go for it, be creative, do what you want. And I really, really valued that because while I did have some posts that weren't the most engaging, I was able to create content that I really found enjoyable to create, and I learned a lot.
So for me, it's difficult to pick a favorite, but I think the one that I did when I was in Shanghai working for Omni Marketing would probably be one of the ones that I think was the most beneficial to my professional growth. When I was there, I got a chance to work with some really important companies like Lululemon, UPS, United Technologies, Hot Wheels, to name a few. And in addition to just working on the projects, I was also able to be the account manager for a few of their social medias. So much like Emma, I was just sort of given creative leeway and told to find a solution to their problems and create the content that I wanted to create. Specifically with this internship, I was able to assist in the transition of the American consumer mindset from Shanghainese companies. So that was something that was really interesting because I got to see the different tactics applied to brand strategy when it's something that's being promoted in the States versus something that's being promoted in China, and how that can vary per different social channels. So I really, really appreciated that. But one of the things that really sold me on really wanting to come back potentially to Omni Marketing was the fact that they made me feel like I was important, and they really valued my work and reminded me of that often. Myself and another Champlain student were both interning there, and we were consistently being invited out to company outings. We were being asked to go out to dinner with our bosses all the time. And so I really felt like the company culture was one of the reasons that I really enjoyed being there.
And then if all of you could talk about some of the challenges you had throughout some of your internships and what you learned from those challenges. We'll start with Sarah again.
There we go. One of my biggest challenges there was the fact that I'm an introvert, so making phone calls was like one of the toughest things for me, which is weird because it's like, oh, you just need to sound professional, like talking to another person. But no, it's like talking on the phone like freaks me out. I just get nervous. So I'm learning to actually communicate over the phone. was a really important skill I had to learn. I ended up getting coached a lot by my supervisor, who was like the manager of the organization I worked for. And she ended up being a big asset for me in order to like overcome my like nervousness over the phone and get through that. Also, just like the internship was a lot of errands and such, but then there were times where I was actually doing like big important things, like actually scheduling meetings, like proof checking the actual pamphlet that they were going to use for their annual festival was a big one, and that was terrifying. But it also allowed me to do so many different things I would not have done before in the classroom.
For me, one of my hardest internships was when I was an editorial intern at a local company in South Burlington, and they really didn't have a whole lot of projects for me to work on, and they didn't really listen to my goals. So learning to advocate for myself and say, I am an intern, but I also am here to learn from this position. I'm not just here to do work for you. You hired me as like, it's a mutual position. So going into internships, knowing that you're there to help and to work, but also you should be learning from this experience and you should be getting something out of it as well.
Yeah, I would definitely echo what Emma said. I think for one of my first internships, I was definitely just like the traditional intern in the sense that I just kind of sat there, was handed Excel spreadsheets every now and then and asked to pick up coffee. So understanding that this is not necessarily just an opportunity for the company to gain somebody to help out, but also knowing when it's okay to advocate for yourself and say, hi, I really understand that you folks might not have much work for me right now, but if there's anything I can do to gain my skills and try to get more experience under my belt, I'd really appreciate that. Would definitely have been my number one challenge.
And then to wrap up this specific section of internship questions, how has having an internship helped you all figure out what you like and what you don't like about what you're pursuing? We'll start with Sarah again.
So doing this internship meant that it was my first time actually working in like an office environment. And I mean, it wasn't like the biggest office in the world. There were only 2 regular employees and then a bunch of part-time volunteers that would come in and occasionally do work. And it made me realize that a small office is actually where I most blossom. Like I would get too nervous if there were so many people around. But it also, I mean, it has its benefits, like having so many people around. I actually got to talk to a lot of people, learn about what it was like living in Dublin and working there and stuff. But I really blossom better when I'm in a smaller environment, but also given a lot of leeway with my work and what I have to do. And it also made me realize that I don't like being in like neighborhoods, because my internship was located right in the middle of a neighborhood. And there were a whole bunch of snotty kids that were running around there, and they would try to break into the office to steal stuff, which is a quirk in Dublin. And I actually had to deal with a bunch of them that were trying to break in to steal stuff. And I ended up we almost had to call the police on the little kids, which is just a trip. But it made me realize that just like how much I just like being in an office, and if I can handle it, if I ever find a job in an office space, I would probably be able to flourish there. I would do pretty well.
Okay, so what I learned about myself in internship roles the most is having a lot of varied internship roles, where I worked at a farm, I worked at a printing company, I worked at a restaurant, I'm in an agency, nonprofits, the whole spectrum. I learned mostly about what kind of part of marketing I like to do the most. I really have honed into brand strategy. And then I also have learned that agencies are really where I flourish, and in-house marketing might not be for me.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I guess learned the most from my internship was specifically what I wanted to do with my life. I changed majors because of one of my internships. When I started interning for Omni Marketing, I realized that agency work and like Emma said, brand strategy, marketing communications is really where I felt like I flourished the best in. So I switched my major from filmmaking to communications and declared a minor in marketing, and really let that kind of pave my career path.
So jumping back to some broader questions about everything we've talked about during this live stream, I want to ask a question about what you all would say to somebody who's hesitating to study abroad, because I know some people think it might not be for them, but what have you gained from your experiences that you really would encourage other people to do it? And we'll start with Nick this time. Bring Nick back.
Hey, I'm back. So what I definitely say is I think we all felt that initial fear of when we were applying, because it's scary to say, I'm going to leave everything I've known, which I've only lived in America my whole life. So to travel to another country, there's that like pit in your stomach that what if this goes wrong? What if that goes wrong? And it's scary, but it's something you have to learn to accept, because you're going to make these big choices when you do get to college that are going to seem scary, but they're going to have to be made. You can't not make these choices. And I think for study abroad, it just was such an amazing experience that if I didn't make that choice, that I would have really regretted.
For me, it's more what I was worried about when I first was studying abroad was the fact that like I'm not sure if I would fit in or with the culture, or like would I be okay being on my own, because I had to shop, I had to cook for myself, which is unusual for me. I have to clean my own stuff. I'm basically really on my own, but I think it's one of those things where it's like it's a good like transitional like space. Like you're not completely like unattended, like you'll always have your roommates that watch out for you, but also you'll have the staff at the campuses that you're at that will always help you out whatever you need. I think it's a good time. It's a good time to actually go out and see what the rest of the world looks like. Like you don't know how sheltered you are in America until you've actually like gone out to a different country and looked at things from like far away. It becomes such a different experience. You come back changed, in both positive and negative ways. But you know, it's something that you should try out. It's all about new experiences, and you never know until you try.
I would say, especially if you're planning on attending Champlain, try to go abroad in a smaller sense. So Champlain has core travel programs that do 10-day courses, or they do a semester-long course with a 10-day travel program. And that's something I did my second year at Champlain, where I was a little tentative whether or not I wanted to study abroad for the whole semester. So I took a travel course, and I went to London and Edinburgh and all around the UK for spring break of my second year. And that was really when I was like, wow, I can learn so much from getting outside of the classroom and outside of the United States. And that really solidified my decision to study abroad. So I think that try it in small doses if you're really, really scared, but also push yourself, and don't be afraid to challenge what you're comfortable with.
Yeah, I feel like my peers have pretty much covered all of it. I think that it's just really important to make sure that you take things at your own pace. You push yourself outside of your comfort zone and you get out there and you see the world, because the ways that it's going to expand your perspective, be they in your major, in your personal life, and whatever like thought process or structure of beliefs you may have, is absolutely amazing. And I think it's one of the most worthwhile opportunities you're going to have while you're studying.
So another awesome thing about studying abroad is that you have the opportunity to travel either around that new country or to another country. And so this next question is, what was your favorite place you traveled when you were abroad? And again, that can either be in the country of Ireland or in a completely different place. So we will start with Nick here.
So I think the coolest spot I got to travel while in New Zealand was a hot sand beach. When I heard about it, I was kind of like, what is that? But we went, it was about 40 degrees out, so it was pretty chilly, and it was raining, and we were going to a beach. So we were in bathing suits, and we get to this beach, and during low tide, when the water goes out, there are like these lava rocks that are underneath the beach, and they heat up the sand in the water. So you got a shovel and you like dig your own little hot tubs. And we spent like 3 hours at this beach in these tiny little sand hot tubs, and that just really sticks out in my mind as one of the coolest and craziest experiences I got to experience and do while abroad.
And then me. My favorite place to travel to, besides from places in Ireland, I actually went with my mom to France to just for like, I think 2 days and 1 night. It was really neat because you always romanticize France as being like, oh, the beautiful places to go, beautiful place to go, French food, romance, all that crap. But then you actually go and you're like, oh, this is really cool. Like, it's a little dirty, but it's also like the Eiffel Tower is actually kind of big. And the Notre Dame is actually really pretty. And just being there and just being surrounded by all those cultures, like, wow, I'm actually like kind of starved in America for all this food and culture. It was a really cool place to go.
This is a really hard question for me. I had some really memorable experiences while I was abroad, but I think one trip that I took was within the country of the Czech Republic. I went to Český Krumlov. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it's south of Prague, and it's this really cute little town. And we got to go on a hike while we were there, so it was a really great experience, mostly because I got to get out of the city and go hiking, which I love to do, which is why I'm in Vermont, but also see more of the country that I was living in.
For me, my opportunities abroad weren't necessarily quantified by the places I got to go, but the experiences that I had, which is why what some people might call a boring, I guess, exciting place being Scotland, just because it's so similar to Ireland already. For me, it was one of my most formative experiences because it was the first solo trip I took. And being able to spend a week by myself, just doing things for me and not having to worry about anybody else was a really great experience. And I felt like I really growed in that week. I got a chance to see some amazing things and experience some really great things that I don't think I would have gotten the chance to do had I been with a larger group. So if you folks do get a chance to have an experience abroad, I really encourage that you try to take a solo trip, even if it's just 1 day to a different city or an entire week dedicated in a new country.
So we did receive a question in the YouTube live stream, and it is, what is the cost of the travel courses like? So Monse, I know you have some experience with that. If you could say some things about that.
Yeah, so I got the chance to do the travel course to Tanzania, and while we were there, we did the 2 islands of Zanzibar. We went to Pemba and Unguja. It was a 2-week-long trip that took the course of our winter break, but it really depends on the class that you're doing and the course itself, where you're going and flight tickets and stuff like that. So it varies. I know that it can be anywhere from $2,000 to around $4,000. And I know that sounds like a scary amount, especially since Sarah had mentioned that that could be the cost of an entire semester in Dublin. But I would like to echo the fact that there are different opportunities available on campus to finance those. So I know individuals who have applied for grants through our Student Government Association and have been able to be refunded portions of the trip. So it really varies. I know that we recently just had 2 trips go out, 3 actually. Oh, my lights again, to India, the Galapagos Island, and London, and all of them range anywhere from $2,500 to $4,500.
So one thing that we were just talking about in our chat was that there are other options to study abroad or get a chance to go to other countries. So one of the things that I did that wasn't quite through Champlain, but facilitated through our partnership with the University of Vermont was through the UVM Hillel. I got to go and do birthright. So I'm of Jewish heritage, and I got to the chance to apply to go on a birthright trip that was University of Vermont students as well as some students from Champlain as well. And that is covered by the government of Israel. So it was just the cost of my flight to JFK, New York airport, and a $10 transaction fee for applying. So if you have opportunities to go to places that are affordable and you have these connections, try to make those while you can, because I spent 18 days in Israel and it was pretty much all paid for. And if it wasn't for my friends at Champlain that connected me with the University of Vermont's Hillel program, I wouldn't have gone.
So an important question that we all need to know the answer of is the best food you ate while you were abroad. We'll start with Nick.
Oh, geez, I wasn't ready. Gosh, the best food. There was a pizza place that I fell in love with, which, yeah, it was really amazing. It was called Hell's Pizza, and all of the pizzas were named after the seven deadly sins, and it was phenomenal. There was also a churro place that I would go to like once a week. The lady like knew me. She'd make eye contact with me and be like, I know this kid. So yeah, those were I think the best food I had while in New Zealand.
Okay, you don't think that like fish and chips, it's just like fish and french fries. You don't think much about it until you've actually eaten fish and chips in England for like 9 pounds. And it was just like, oh, actually this fish is like succulent and the fries are actually like soft and crispy, but also like pillows. It's just like, oh no, this is what it actually can be like. It was really good. Outside of Ireland, England, actually, steak frites is also good in France. Just steak with like what looks like onions on top, but it's actually fries. And it comes with like this butter that you put on top of the steak, which is really weird, but it actually is amazing and makes everything good.
My favorite thing that I ate abroad and I dream about still was in Florence, Italy, when I went to visit some friends that were studying there. We went to a place called Zaza, and they had this, get ready for it, gorgonzola truffle gnocchi. And it was creamy and savory and just everything I could ever want out of a dish. And I still think about it, and talking about it makes me really hungry.
So I'd like to preface with the fact that usually at home, I tend to eat vegan and mostly gluten-free, but I throw all those rules out the windows when I'm traveling because I want to be able to experience as much local cuisine as possible. So for me, it's really a toss-up between the Zanzibari street food, specifically this like naan-like bread that they would roll up in little pillars and sell to you on the streets for the equivalent of 1 US penny, and you would eat it. And I think I had maybe 17 of them in one sitting at one point because they were delicious. Or this like pierogi-like food that I'm going to butcher the pronunciation is Birenza, which I had when I was in Slovakia, in Bratislava. And what it is, it's a pierogi that's filled with sheep's milk cheese, and it's cooked in a garlic butter sauce and served with onions and scallions. So it's not as much of a pierogi in the dough as much as it is a pierogi in the shape. And it was, oh my goodness, absolutely amazing. And I had it with like a chocolate beverage, and oh my God, I'm hungry thinking about it. It was so good.
I also have to jump in and ask Emma, what was that dessert in the Czech Republic that you would fill with ice cream, and it was like a churro thing?
It was called tredelnik, and it was a chimney cake, and it's like a pastry dough that they wrap around a piece of metal and then roast over like a wood fire. Then they coat it in sugar, and then you can fill it with whatever you want. So like custard, Nutella, jam, soft serve ice cream, anything. Those were so sugary.
Easily the most delicious thing I've ever tried. So I just had to throw that in there. But I want to wrap up this stream by asking everybody some advice that they would give related to internships or abroad, anything that you would want to tell a prospective student that wants to come to Champlain. And my lights are off as well. But we will start with Nick.
So the best advice I could give for anyone who's thinking about going abroad is to seize any opportunity that may come to you. And the best choice might not always be the easiest or the one your friends are doing. It might be the one that you just feel like is right for you. So don't try to focus your abroad experience on just like, I'm going with my friends because they all want to go to Dublin and that's what I want to do. Because that's what I first started when I started looking at abroad, but I do not regret my choice at all to go to New Zealand.
There we go. So I guess I'll split it between internships and abroad. For internships, always be professional, but don't be afraid to be friendly. That's the biggest one I can think of for internships. For abroad, just make sure that you know how to budget, because that ends up being very important to actually being able to not only live a weekly budget and eat, but also just to have fun, even plan out the trips to go out of the country and go to other countries. It ends up being very important.
I would say just push yourself to try new things in internships or abroad. Either or could result in an experience that really changes your perspective and that really drives your passion. So don't be afraid to try new things and just go for it.
I would say to definitely take advantage of your resources and try to allocate the different universities available that have the resources that you need for what's going to be most successful for your personal growth. But also, Champlain plug, Audiamus, you need to just get out there and do things that might not seem like the right thing at the right time, and just try new things, take risks, and get out there and see the world. I cannot stress enough how important I think traveling is in order to be culturally rounded and really understand different perspectives. There's only so much that you can read through a computer screen or through a textbook. And I think it's really important to go out there and experience that firsthand, because every experience will turn into a learning experience.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you, Jessie, for hosting. Thank you so much to our awesome panelists for your great words of advice and your experience studying abroad and your internships. And thank you everyone so much for tuning in on Facebook Live and YouTube live stream. Thanks for submitting your questions. You can find the rest of our live streams as well as our past live streams on our Champlain Admitted website, our admissions blog, and our YouTube channel. So a couple of live streams we have coming up. Next week on March 27th, we have student leadership. Following that on April 3rd, we have our theme is I'm admitted, now what? After that, on April 9th, we have a Women in Leaders in and Out of the Classroom session. We also have Admitted Students Days coming up. So we have one this Saturday. I really hope to see a lot of you at that one. And we have one as well on April 13th. So if you're not able to make it this weekend, we'd love to see you in April. As always, you can connect with your future classmates on Champlain College Class of 2023 Facebook group. Thanks again for everyone for joining us, and hope to see you all soon.